I guess, to spin that around to a high note.
Yeah,
What
please.
what are you looking forward to in 2021?
Well, I am looking forward to later in the year actually seeing family, going back to the UK. 3 of my 4 children are in the UK, and loads of friends and other, relatives. And not just there, like traveling to see people. That's it. And I guess that's what we all found out in 2020 was important.
Yeah, it was actually the first year in my whole 7 years of doing Salesforce and being out of the military, as far as being full time, that I didn't actually go up to Northern California to visit the rest of my family for Christmas. So it was it definitely shows you what's important in life.
Yeah. Donald, what did you do in the forces?
So I actually started off in the Air Force, security forces up in Northern California as basically security forces MP at Beale Air Force Base. And then shortly after that, ended up transitioning to the infantry in the Army, and did about 13 years in total. The last part of that was in the Guard, while I was also starting my Salesforce career, doing commo for an aviation unit up in Northern California. So
fantastic. What base in Northern California?
So the first one was Beale Air Force
Beale. Yeah, I mean, I know it.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so
I know it because I'm a pilot, and there's a permanent TFR over it, so you have to fly around it.
Nice. I actually just got my my student license FAA card, so I'm working on letting off my
Go for it. It's so fantastic. But so I know Beale, but then you said you did.
Yeah, when I was in the Guard, yeah, it was actually the Stockton Airport. All the helicopters that they have over there, all the Blackhawks and Chinooks and all that stuff. That's where I was running commo for. So.
Wow. Do you know I'm a real plane geek, right? And I have this app. Okay. It's Flight Radar 24. So if you hold it up literally like a pair of binoculars, it tells you all the planes and awesome. Tail numbers and everything. It's really fun because around here in the Bay, there's so much light aircraft plus commercial traffic. You can see things. But when the Chinooks go over, they're invisible. Like you can't, you hold up your app, they're not there.
There's reasons for that. Actually, I grew up right outside of Travis Air Force Base. My high school was literally right there next to Travis. So
cool. Also flown past that a few times. Anyway, I got to shut up now. Otherwise, everyone would be like, God, that woman, stop droning on.
No, all is well. We actually have dedicated a large portion of this presentation to having you speak. So, Evan, it is cool that you're here now. I guess the question is, because I think Alyssa, originally you were going to present first, and then Evan was going to be second. Is that right, or is that still the same game plan, or do we want to move that around? Or
the agenda? Yeah, the agenda I saw had me going first.
Oh, okay. Is that cool, Alyssa?
That's totally fine.
Awesome.
I'm good.
Of course, I think you want Evan to go first, because if Evan goes second, he'll give a report of your presentation, which you may want.
Well, we have 20 people out there in the intersphere that are actually watching on YouTube Live. Again, Craig, Carrie, Joy, Mark, and the rest of y'all, thank you very much for joining. My name is Donald Borsch. Some of y'all met me in person. Essentially the Phoenix user / admin group leader here in the Phoenix area, and director of practices and alliances over MST Solutions. First introduction I want to make out of the rest of the 3 here is to Jason. Jason, thank you very much for all of your time and support in helping to put this actually together. For the rest of the community out here, great news. He actually is going to be helping me essentially as the co-leader as we move forward now. So yes, Jason, thank you very much, and excited to continue collaborating with you to make this community a success.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to help wherever I can. Yeah, I've been going to a lot of virtual meetings this year, so that's one positive note of 2020 is all these virtual meetings where I've met Alyssa and Evan and a bunch of other presentations almost as great as theirs. So if there's anyone who knows of another great presenter, let me know, and or let Dawn know, and we'll be able to get those lined up. So happy to assist with lining all that up and helping those wonderful stars out there align so that we can feel that energy from those great presenters.
Awesome.
I don't know where I was going with that metaphor.
And yeah, so moving into the meat and potatoes here, Evan.
Hello. So I'll do a quick intro. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, on the East Coast here. Joining courtesy of Jason, who was coming to a few of the meetings I was attending online and thought I'd be a great fit for this one. Let's see, let me get my screen share going here, and I want to make sure I can watch the comments on YouTube in case anything comes up. Okay.
And just as an FYI on that note, that's one of the main things I'm going to be doing is watching the YouTube here. And so if anyone does have any questions that come up, please put them in the comments box there on the right. And whether Evan sees them or not, I'll make sure that they're brought up.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Keep your 4 eyes on the screen, Evan. That's all.
Yeah, a lot to look at here. Let's see. Screen share, and I want to share this one. Okay. Perfect. So you should be seeing my presentation at this point.
Yes.
So my name is Evan Ponter. I'm the founder and principal consultant at Ponter Solutions. And today I want to get into a way to approach reporting like you probably never have before. And at its core, the concept is actually really simple. For every object that you have in your Salesforce org that you want to report on, you can create a single custom report type to support all of your reporting needs for that object. So anytime you need a report result to show you a list of accounts, you're going to use this single custom report type built for accounts that's always going to show you a list of account records. And the same is true for contacts. You're going to use a single custom report type built for contacts, another one for opportunities, and so on and so forth for literally any object that you have in your Salesforce org. The great news is this works with managed packages. It works on standard objects. It works on custom objects. Any Salesforce org you log into, you can implement this framework right away. Now, this is a far cry from the normal experience that people have when they're trying to build reports in Salesforce. The very first decision you have to make is which report type are you going to use? And I took this video from a brand new org that didn't have any managed packages. There was no custom report type set up. This is just the standard out-of-the-box list of report types, and it can be very overwhelming. People are trying to navigate all the standard report types, some that came with their managed packages. Maybe they got frustrated with both of those options and they built some of their own custom report types. Then you start running into this concept of object with another object, or object without another object, with or without. Just what does it all mean, right? We're trying to get data out of our Salesforce orgs, and we need a simple, easy way to do that you can rely on so you're not always fumbling in the dark. But a lot of times what happens when people get frustrated with the current experience, they just hope for the best. They cross their fingers, they pick a report type that sort of sounds right based on whatever's in the name, and they start building their reports. But that very quickly leads to frustrations. People will tell you, hey, the same record shows up multiple times. How do I dedupe this report so that I can see a nice clean list of what I'm hoping to see? Or maybe you've been able to solve some problems by bringing together fields from a few disparate objects, but everybody's always looking for more. How can I get more fields from more objects in order to bring together all of the data we're trying to see and answer some critical questions using Salesforce reports. And the worst problem I find when people are getting frustrated is they'll tell you Salesforce is wrong, or the filters aren't working, or I'm not seeing all of the records that I want to see. And the key thing there is there are 5 distinct reasons why you might not be seeing all of the records you want to see. So I want to take a moment to cover all 5 reasons in great detail. Filters, 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 filters. The 5 reasons you're not seeing the data you want to see is because it's being filtered out at some level. There are 5 kinds of filters to be on the lookout for. And what I learned early in my career when I was working with Salesforce was the last 4 filters I have listed up here can be changed at any point, which is great news. If you start building a report and you need to make a tweak to the role filter or a time frame filter, add some additional field filters or cross filters, that's all very easy to do. You're in the report builder, you can make those adjustments and you move about your day. But that very first filter I have listed up there is the report type. Report type is the first filter applied to your report results, and it's narrowing down the scope of your data and what you're going to have access to in the report builder. The bad news about the report type being a filter is you can't change it once you select one. You pick a report type, you get to the report builder. If you spend hours putting together all of your filters and your columns and your groupings, and you got some charts going and everything looks really nice, and you discover that you are not using the right report type, you've just wasted an afternoon building a beautiful report that's not going to answer that question. How frustrating is that? So once I realized the importance of the report type as the first filter being applied to my data, and the fact that I can't change it later on, I set out on a mission to figure out how do I build the most flexible report types possible so I never have this problem again, because I'm tired of wasting an afternoon on a report only to find out I need to start over from scratch. So I started doing some experiments. I wanted to figure out, how do report types work? How are their filters being embedded into my report type, and how can I eliminate them so I can build something very flexible? And what I found was Salesforce sort of encourages the following behavior. You go to create a custom report type, they tell you to choose a primary object, and then it seems as if you want to include fields from other objects, you have to start using this relate another object link. And that allows you to move down your data architecture hierarchy. What I mean by that is, if you start with accounts as your primary object, the very first list of options you have to relate another object are going to be child objects of accounts. It's that one-to-many relationship.
Would you prefer questions right now or at the end of your presentation? That is one thing I forgot to ask.
I would say let's do them at the end, because I probably will answer a lot of them.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I got one from Carrie, and I'll save it to the end.
Okay. I don't know if there is a limit. There's probably is a functional limit, but I don't know that one off the top of my head. Okay, so if we start with an object like accounts and we start relating other objects, you're going to see the choices here are going to be the child object. So your accounts have a one-to-many relationship with contacts. There can be many contacts for a single account. Now, once you choose contacts, you're going to see a list of child objects for contacts. So this standard contract object has a relationship. And you can keep working your way down, and you can have a total maximum of 4 objects in a hierarchy. I started to think about, well, even though I started this report type with accounts as the primary object, I found that every time I added another layer to this, it becomes further and further away from a list of account records. The results of a report type that have this configuration where there's 4 objects in a hierarchy are actually showing you a list of records for the object at the bottom. This is going to be a list of opportunities and each one is related to a contract. Each one of those contracts is related to a contact, and each contact is related to an account. And that's the importance of the primary object. Every single record that you see in your results has to have a relationship back to the primary object. And if any one of those lookup fields are blank along the way, that record is filtered out. You're not going to see it in your report results. Well, this only handles a very specific reporting scenario. What if I want to see some information from the campaign that's related to the opportunity, or the price book, or maybe I need some custom fields from the contact, or I want to know some more information about the account owner? This method and this strategy is not going to work for that. So I discovered there's a better way to do this. We can take this model and completely flip it upside down. There is no reason to start at the top and work your way down, enforcing all those objects, creating all those filters at every level. If you start at the bottom of your data architecture hierarchy and choose the object that you want to show up as a list of records in your report results, you can actually include reference fields from up to 60 different objects. That's 60. And you can span 5 relationships away in a straight line. So let's take that same example from before and flip it upside down. We're going to start with opportunities as our primary object in our custom report type. We want our report results to show us a list of opportunity records. And if we need to reference some fields from that same 4-object hierarchy from before, we can easily add in those fields. If we want some custom information from the campaigns, price books, the contact creator, that custom info we wanted from the account owner, which is 5 relationships away, or literally any other lookup field or master detail field that exists on your primary object or any object above it in your data architecture hierarchy, meaning you're going from a record to its parent, to its grandparent, to its great-grandparent, and yes, even great-great-grandparent, you can bring all of that into a single custom report type, traversing all those relationships. Now, I like to call this a deluxe report type. This is the Swiss Army knife of reporting. You can use it for everything, and it's incredibly flexible because there are no filters embedded within the report type. And you know exactly what you're going to get in your results before you even begin. So let me show you just how easy it is to create one of these. It is 3 simple steps. First step is to create a custom report type and choose your primary object. Again, this is the object whose records you want to display as rows in your report results. On the second page, you're not going to define any object relationships at all. We just want our primary object to be the only object enforced in this custom report type. On the third step, we're going to edit the custom report type layout and add in all those reference fields. So let's jump in right now and show you just how simple and amazing that this is. I'm in my Lightning enabled org. If you're using Classic, this works in Classic. If you're on Professional Edition, this works in Professional Edition. There's nothing you need to install. There's nothing you need to purchase. All you need is access to be able to create custom report types, and you can create deluxe report types of your own. So I'm in the Setup menu, and if you search for report types here, you'll see it under Analytics, Reports and Dashboards, and then Report Types. And I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new custom report type here. My primary object is going to be opportunities for this example. Now here's the first tip that I have. This is what I call Ponter's pointers. I name my deluxe report type the name of the object followed by deluxe in parentheses. This naming convention is going to help separate this report type from all of the other noise that we have in our Salesforce org. Next pointer. In the description, I list every row represents an opportunity record, just to make it abundantly clear what the results of this report type are going to show you. After that, I include a list of all the objects I plan to reference. You can always come back and edit this description later if you need to, but I'll show you why in a few steps here that this is important to do for maintenance reasons. We have to store this in a category, so I'm going to put this in the opportunities category. And you want to make sure your report type is deployed so that other people logging in can access and use this custom report type. That's the first step. Now, step 2 is actually the hardest step because you have to resist the urge. For everything that you've known, every time you've ever built a custom report type, you always relate to other objects, right? That's what Salesforce seems to want you to do. But we have to resist. We just want opportunities, or whatever your primary object is, to be the only object enforced. You want a nice, happy, gray circle with a blue line around it, and that's it. So we're just going to click Save on this screen. And I would very much argue with Salesforce that the third step of the custom report type wizard should be to edit the layout. At this point, we've already created our custom report type, but if you scroll down to the bottom, we have this Edit Layout button. And this is where we can access all the fields from any other object and bring them into our report builder to use as columns or filters and include them in our graphs and charts. So by default, all of the fields from your primary object, or really it's any object enforced in the custom report type, are included in the layout by default. If you ever add a new field to your primary object, you will find it over here in the panel as you scroll through this next page, previous page thing. Now, right above that, there's this little hyperlink with about size 12 font. It says add fields related via lookup. This should be 100 times bigger and have fireworks because this is where all the magic happens. If you click on this link, add fields related via lookup, you're going to see a list of all the relationships that exist on your primary object. You can follow the path here as I'm going through this click screens. But this literally allows us to traverse a relationship. So if I traverse a contract relationship, I'm now looking at all of the fields that exist on the contract object. Standard fields, custom fields, they're all here. Now you can go ahead and select all of those fields if you want, but because this style of report type allows for so much flexibility, I actually encourage people to make sure you filter out the fields you know you're not using. There is a limit here of 1,000 fields that can be included on a custom report type layout. So if you know you're not using some custom fields or some of the fields on an object, don't select all. Maybe we're not using shipping address. We just freed up 10 seats for 10 other fields that are going to bring more value to our report building experience. So only choose the fields that you need. Once we add those to the layout, you'll see they have a little magnifying glass icon next to them. And that lets you know it's a reference field. It comes from some other object that you accessed through this add fields related via lookup link. Now, I like to keep my report type layouts nice and organized. So I create sections, at least for every single unique object that I'm referencing. I'm going to call this contracts. I can select all the fields and I can drag them down into that section. You can hold the Shift key to select multiple fields. You can also hold Control or Command on a Mac in order to click on individual fields and drag them down in bulk. Now let's go back to that add fields related via lookup again, because not only can we traverse one relationship, but once we get to an object, we also have access to view its related fields on its parent objects. So we can traverse those relationships as well. Maybe I want to know more information about the customer who signed this contract. I can traverse this relationship, and now I'm looking at all the fields on the contact object. I can select all of them if I want to, making sure to filter out anything we know we're not using so that we have plenty of room for all the fields we want to add to this custom report type. I'll hit OK. Those are added. I'm going to create a new section. I'm going to call this contacts. And some people like to get very in-depth and granular with their sections. Go for it. There are no rules. You can organize it however you see fit. I've had clients who like to mimic their record page layouts with their sections in the custom report type. And I'll show you those sections are going to organize your fields over here in the report builder. So every time you create a section, you're making a new folder. And those headers also show up as you're scrolling through and adding fields via this method. We have opportunity creators, we have contracts. Every one of those is a section. So use that to your advantage and create sections to help bring some sense to all the fields that people have access to in the report builder. And we can go absolutely nuts using this method. Like I said before, you can bring in up to 1,000 fields from up to 60 unique objects. That's 60 unique objects. Way more than the 4 objects that you get when you use the other method of creating custom report types. So I can traverse this contract relationship. I can go get more information about the customer. I can go up to their account. I can get more information from their account owner. And there it is. I've traversed 4 relationships, and I'm now looking at a hierarchy of 5 objects, which is more than what you can normally do using that other method. So again, I can select all. I can deselect anything I know we're not using. There's this awful SU access stuff. I don't know what that is, but don't let it waste a seat in your custom report type. Create a new section. And for this, you might want to make it very clear that these are account owners or anything else that helps you realize the path you took to get to that user object. I'm going to come back up here and drag all those fields down into that section. Now, there's a couple other cool things I want to show you that you can do once you get all the fields included. And we have them all nice and organized. Now, if we double click on any one of these fields, you're going to see a properties window open up. It's called field information. If you look at the bottom or top of this report type layout editor, it's this edit properties button. It does the same thing. So if I click here and hit edit properties, I get that same window. Now there's 2 options here that you have for every single field in your custom report type layout. First one is display as. And you'll notice that by default, they use this really long naming convention that shows you the path you took to get to that object. Now, if you're like me and you're building Deluxe report types for every single object, bringing in lots of reference fields from all over your data architecture hierarchy, you're not going to want these super long names. They look terrible when you're grouping by these fields. If you're trying to do any sort of summary report or show charts, you're going to want to shorten these up. You can do that here. So I can take this and say, I know I'm looking at an account owner. I just need that piece of the label. And I can make this say account owner about me. This isn't changing the field's label on the object in the setup menu. It's not changing its API name. It's just changing how this field displays in this custom report type. So you have incredible granularity here to create an experience where people can have labels translated for their department if you wanted to. I've had clients who build a Deluxe custom report type for one object, but they have 2, and they have one for finance and they have one for operations because they're using the same fields but with different names. And allowing them to relabel those fields has helped immensely with people understanding the data that they're looking at. The other option you have is this checked by default checkbox. What that's going to do, if you check that off, you'll see it has a little check mark icon, so you know. That's going to automatically include this field as a column anytime you build a brand new report using this custom report type. So you can create a template essentially if you know people building reports from this custom report type are always going to be looking at first name, double click on that field and check it off by default. You can select a bunch of fields. I'm holding the shift key again. And you can double click or you can hit that edit properties and you can edit all those options in bulk for all of the fields. Now my favorite thing to do with that feature is select all of the fields in an entire section and edit their labels all at the same time, their display as value. And what I figured out is once this window opens up, if you right click on it, if my mouse will let me right click up and show as tab, you now have access to all of your Google Chrome extensions. I'm using Google Chrome here. And since you have access to your extensions, I found one that lets you do a search and replace on text that you see on the screen, which really helped me out here. So if I want to take away this whole first part of the naming convention, I just select it, I copy it. This Google Chrome extension is called Search and Replace. I can send you a link to that, or I'll put it in the chat once I get out of here. And I can search for that label. I can replace it with nothing and say replace all. And I've just shortened the labels for an entire section of fields and made sure they're all absolutely consistent, which is beautiful. So I hit OK on that, and I'm ready to have those fields in my report builder. Now there's one other thing I'll mention here. Whenever you're building a report, you have this default time frame filter. It shows up, it's a built-in filter. You can't get rid of it really. You can change things to all time, and that's great. But how do you know, like, why is it that close date is the field that's selected here by default? And it turns out it has everything to do with which date or date time field shows up first in your report layout. So if we look up here, sure enough, close date is the very first date or date time field in this layout. If I wanted a different date field to be the default time frame filter, all I need to do is drag that field to a position higher. And now, whenever I'm building a report, it will select created date by default. Just another one of those little details that might really help people who are building reports so that they're not accidentally filtering on the wrong date field. So that's it for building a Deluxe report type. I have it saved. The reason we put a very in-depth description here is because if you go back to your report type setup menu, you can create a list view on your report types. And because we're using a naming convention, you can set up a Deluxe report type list view. And this really helps with maintenance if you're being accurate with your descriptions, because if you create a new field on, say, the account object, you can come to this list view, search for the word account, and see all of the report types that you might need to update with a new field from that account object. Now, Salesforce did do us a little bit of a favor. In Winter 21, they have a new feature. If I can get my slides to work, that helps you maintain your custom report types. If you go to Reports and Dashboard Settings, they have a new check toggle here called Auto Add New Custom Fields to Custom Report Type Layouts. Once you set up that setting, anytime you create a brand new field, you'll see this option to add the field to existing custom report types. Now, how this plays into this Deluxe report type model, it means any new field you create, if you check off both those options, it will automatically be added to your Deluxe report type for the Deluxe report type built for that object. Meaning the opportunities Deluxe report type I just set up, if I create a new opportunity field, I can have it automatically added. So that's great. But all those reference objects that I'm referencing, like from account or contacts or contracts, if I create new fields on those objects, I'm still going to have to manually update this Deluxe report type. So it does still help for now to have some kind of way to wrap your head around which ones you need to update. And this is the best method I found for doing that. Okay, so we've talked a lot about building. We've talked a little bit about maintenance. Now I want to show you what can we do with this thing. And I've boiled it down to, at the core of any reporting request you're doing, it's one of these 7 scenarios. And it's really in 3 categories. We're either working with records from a single object, we're working with some configuration of parent records with their children, 2, 3, and 4 here, or some combination of child records with their parents. And as we go through each one of these, I'll give you a quick example, but I want to really emphasize that we should be able to understand what we want the results to look like before we even tackle it. And we need to really understand which object is going to have its records represented by the rows in the report. So the first one is really easy. If we just want to report on records from one object, we don't need any other reference fields, we can use the Deluxe report type framework to do that. If I switch into my report builder and say I wanted to build a report on opportunity records and I just need opportunity fields, I can include them as columns, I can use them as filters, life is great. The results are going to show me a list of opportunity records. Now the next scenario is parent records with child records. This is something like accounts with opportunities. And there's a couple different ways to think about this one. And the first way is the way Salesforce has sort of trained you to think about it. You can look at accounts with opportunities in a way where we see fields from both objects, and we can include fields from both objects as columns, and we can use them as filters. And that's really an inner join, where the results of that style of report are really a list of opportunity records that are related to an account because of that one-to-many relationship. Every row is going to be an opportunity record, and each one of those opportunities is related to an account. We can do that with Deluxe report type framework. All we need to do is make sure we're using the object at the bottom of our hierarchy. So opportunities, I'm using the opportunities Deluxe. And if I really want to make sure that every opportunity is related to an account, all I need to do here is add a field filter. And this is the beauty of Deluxe report types. I did not embed this filter in my report type. I have access to toggle this filter at runtime just by adding a regular field filter. And all I need to do is make sure that the account relationship field, or something we know is going to be populated on the record, like account name, make sure it's not blank. And now every single one of the opportunities in your results is definitely related to an account. We've mimicked that inner join scenario using this Opportunities Deluxe custom report type. The other way to think about parent records with child records is, say you want a deduplicated list of accounts and you want to make sure that every one of the accounts that shows up in your results has a child opportunity. We can use the Deluxe report type model for that, but we're going to think about it a little differently. Because we want the results to show us a list of accounts, we're going to use the Accounts Deluxe report type. And the way we can filter on child objects is by using a cross filter. And I could do a whole nother presentation on cross filters, but briefly, if you go to the Filters tab and click on this Options dropdown, you can add a cross filter. And this is huge. So we can say, show me accounts with opportunities. And if we apply that cross filter, every single account we're looking at in the results definitely has a child opportunity record. Furthermore, we can add additional criteria to our cross filters if we want to make sure that the account has a certain kind of opportunity. So maybe you want to say, show me accounts that had opportunities that closed last year. If we add close date as additional criteria and use a relative date like last year and apply that, now all of the account records in our report results have an opportunity that has a close date equal to last year. How cool is that? You didn't have to export anything. You didn't have to open Excel or do any sort of VLOOKUP craziness to filter out those duplicates. I can guarantee this is a deduplicated list of account records, and every one of them has an opportunity with close date equal to last year, all from a Deluxe report type with the help of a cross filter. The next step is sort of the opposite of that. What if I want to look at account records that don't have opportunities? Again, we're going to use the Accounts Deluxe report type because we want a list of accounts, and we want to make sure that every one of the accounts does not have an opportunity. Well, it turns out we can use our friend the cross filter again and just say, show me accounts without opportunities. And once we apply that, here's all the accounts that don't have any opportunities. And furthermore, again, we can add additional criteria here to say, show me accounts that don't have certain kind of opportunities. And what gets really tricky here is people think, well, hey, wait a minute, didn't we already filter out accounts that have no opportunities at all, how would this be any different? And the reason is, think of it as being completely opposite of when we were doing an accounts with opportunities filter. When we did accounts with opportunities and we added additional criteria, we were narrowing our scope down. But since we're doing accounts without opportunities now, when we add additional criteria, we're actually broadening our filter. So the example here is like saying, I want to look at accounts that don't have any opportunities where the stage is closed won. What that's going to give me is accounts that don't have any opportunities at all, or every single one of the opportunities on an account is not closed won. So it's basically all of your open opportunities and your prospects and stuff for accounts that have never had a closed opportunity. Pretty cool stuff. Again, I could do a whole nother presentation, but we don't have quite enough time for all that. Next up on the list is really combining the last two scenarios that I said. And this is actually the only time you can't use a deluxe report type to solve for this problem. So parent records with or without child records. This would be like saying, I want to look at accounts and I want to look at opportunities, and I don't know if every account has an opportunity, but I want to be able to filter across both of those data sets. You can use a with or without style custom report type for that. But what I want to emphasize here is you have to be really clear on what the results of this kind of report type are going to give you. It is truly a combination of scenarios 2 and scenario 3. If you build one for accounts with or without opportunities, you're going to see a list of opportunity records. Each one of those opportunities is definitely related to an account because account is the primary object. But tacked on to the end of that, at the end of the data set, you're going to see a list of all of the accounts that don't have any opportunities. I'll show you a quick example of where that becomes really, really useful. I find that anytime you're doing a with or without scenario, it really helps to group by a field on the parent object, in this case, accounts. So I've had scenarios where people want to summarize their opportunity data for a defined list of accounts. Let's say it's accounts that were created last calendar year that are type equals gig. I already have it set up. Look at me. If I group by account name, I can hide some of the subtotals here to clean this up. I can summarize hide the detail rows. I can summarize fields from either object. So this is where it gets tricky. I'm summarizing the amount from opportunity, and I've filtered down my list to show me certain kinds of accounts and certain kinds of opportunities too. So it's my accounts that were created last year, and the opportunity type is gig. I'm looking at a list of my accounts, and here's the thing. It's like, if there's no other way to do this, because if the opportunity didn't meet the criteria, it would filter out the whole row and you wouldn't see your account that has either no opportunities or the amount totals up to 0. So the scenarios where these with or without reports become really useful is when you're defining a list from a parent object, you want to summarize something from the child object, and you don't want to filter out the parent records that have 0, either no amount or no records at all. Next up are the child records and some combination of parent records. So it's the opposite of the last 3 we were talking about. Child records with parent records. Again, that's an inner join scenario. We want to see records from both objects. We want to see fields from both objects, use them as columns and filters, et cetera, et cetera. We actually already did that. That was scenario 2, where we said opportunities deluxe, and we added this field filter to make sure account name was not blank. We have a list of opportunities. Each one of them is definitely related to an account. Next up, child records without parent records. We can use deluxe report types for that. So same report type. All I'm going to do here is toggle this filter to make sure that the account name is blank. Now I'm looking at what I call orphaned opportunities. They don't specify an account. Same report type, and we didn't have to go through a bunch of guess and check to make sure that this is going to work. We just added a simple field filter at runtime. And last but not least, child records with or without parent records. This is the whole point of Deluxe report types, is we have the power to look at a list of opportunities and not care if it's related to an account or not. So we don't need any filters on that. We can remove that. We're going to be looking at a list of opportunities. We have access to all opportunity fields. We have access to all the account fields. And if for whatever reason our orphaned opportunities are showing up that don't have an account specified, the opportunity is not filtered out. We still see this, Admiral's Cup, $500, or Waterfront, $600. We just don't see any data for the account because it doesn't exist. It's not filtered out though. The opportunity is not filtered out. So those are the 7 query scenarios. Now, next step is to work on the user experience for this. We want to simplify that menu because at this point we still have the problem where we type in a word like opportunities and we see way too many results. So let's clean some of that up. At the top of that screen, and this is the only part where you have to log in or switch to Classic in order to set this up. But once you do and switch back to Lightning, if you're using Lightning, all of your settings will take effect. And I have an idea here to bring this feature to Lightning. You check that box, you can toggle the visibility of all the report types that exist in your org. All the standard ones, all the ones came from managed packages, any custom ones you've built, you can toggle them to be hidden. It's not deleting them, it's just hiding them from this menu. So let me show you in 60 seconds how this will change your life. I'm in Lightning here, I've searched for opportunities, and my beautiful opportunities deluxe report type is buried down here at the bottom. What a drag. We want to highlight that one. So let's switch into Classic. We will go to the Report tab. This is not in the Setup menu, it's on the Report tab. Click New Report. You can filter this list here just so you can see what you're doing. And if we check that Select Report Types to Hide at the top, we now see a check mark or an X next to every single report type. And we can go through that list and we can hide everything that's been noise and bothering you and you don't understand how it works and it's frustrating people. Hide it, get rid of it. You can rely almost completely exclusively on your Deluxe report types. If you ever change your mind, you can always come back to this screen and bring something back to life, just make it visible again. And like I said, once you switch into Lightning, all of the settings will take effect. So now when I type in opportunities, I've drastically narrowed those results. Which then begs the question, what do I recommend hiding and what do I recommend keeping? I use the opportunity object on purpose here because it is one of the objects that is going to have up to 5 report types that you might want to keep around. There are some standard report types on some standard objects that you can't recreate as a Deluxe report type or even as a custom report type at all. Some of those being opportunity history, opportunity field history, opportunity trends. Those come out of the box. A lot of other objects have similar things, so be on the lookout for those. You're going to want to keep your Deluxe report type visible, and I like to keep the standard report type that's just the object by itself, just for sanity reasons. I do a lot of development and I'm building new fields all the time, and it's easy to build a quick report and show it to somebody. And I like the guarantee here on the standard report type, it's just the object, that all fields are automatically added to that report type. So I never have to worry about it not being there. For all of the tailored, nuanced, highly flexible experience, you can use that Deluxe report type. And if you have some use cases for history, field history, or trends, you can keep those around. But pretty much everything else you can hide. You might have to keep around a with or without style report if you have a scenario for that, but largely you can have 5, maybe 6 custom or report types per object here. Relying heavily, of course, on your Deluxe. And the naming convention really helps here too, that people can type in the word Deluxe and see all the Deluxe report types all in one screen. This is actually, for one of my clients, all the reports they had access to. They didn't need anything else. You can see all their report types on one screen. There's what, 9 of them here? And that handled the 60 or 70 reports that they were building that ran their organization, all with a nice consolidated list of report types where people know what they're going to get when they click on each one before they even start. The only other thing to keep in mind is making sure people understand which word to type in, which report type to use for their given scenario. And that's all about understanding which object is the primary object, which object is going to have its records represented by rows in the report. And I've even used this riddle when people are explaining, hey, I want to build a report, I want it to show me deals, and I want it to show the totals from each team. I'm like, okay, when you build that report and you're looking at the tabular view, just the list of records, every row represents what kind of record? Get them to fill in that blank and make that translation from the business row to whatever you might be calling it in Salesforce. And they'll say, oh yeah, I want every row to be an opportunity record. I say, bingo, go type that into the report type selection screen and choose from those options. And they're going to be encouraged to look at that Deluxe report type and say, hey, you know what? That one's free. I can upgrade to Deluxe and it doesn't cost me a thing. Yeah, I'm all about it. I'm going to click that Deluxe report type. I'm going to build that report. I'm no longer going to fumble around with all these report types that don't make any sense and they're convoluted and they waste an afternoon of time when you're building a beautiful report. We're just going to get started using the right report type from the beginning, save all that time, and tackle these problems so that we can finally get the data we need out of Salesforce that we've been pouring data into for years and years and years. Now, how does that sound as a better approach to reporting in Salesforce? I'd love to hear your stories or tweet at me. I'm on Twitter @RealEvanPonter. Ask me questions. I'm here to help. And people have been using the hashtag Deluxe report type once they discover this and want to share it with others. So use the hashtag, reach out to me. I'll see you on Twitter. I have a few tips for getting started with this. If you're in an org that's been around for a while, there's a lot of work to do. First thing is to educate. I encourage people to demo the possibilities of Deluxe report types with their teams. You might be trying to solve a problem, or there might have been a problem that people decided couldn't be solved. Maybe from this presentation, you've had an idea or a light bulb moment and want to maybe tackle that problem now. Use Deluxe report types to help you and make that case and show them the flexibility and power of that. I would encourage you to build a Deluxe report type for each key object that you need to report on. You could probably name a handful of them right off the top of your head, and if you scrolled through your org, you could probably finish up that list. But it shouldn't be too overwhelming, I hope, to sit down and start to tackle these whenever you have time and build those Deluxe report types for your key objects. Then I would encourage you to start using them. Put them in production. Report types don't cost you a thing. You can start using them today. You can go through and you can hide all those old report types that you know are confusing, that people aren't using. If there are reports built on those report types that you decide to hide, they will still work. They will still run. There's really nothing stopping you from hiding a report type that you want to discourage people from using going forward. Next step is to prioritize. There are probably some very highly visible and often used reports in your org that have a filter embedded within them because of the report type that probably shouldn't be there. Most cases, it's not a big deal. You could take it or leave it, but the report type, having a single report type to support all of your reports just makes people trust the system a little bit more when they understand how it works and the results that they're going to get. I have had some aha moments once people get to this step and they realize that their tried and true revenue report has been underreporting for years because not every whatever record is related to whatever record was set up in their report type as filters. And they were like, that's why I could never find that deal, or that's why I could never find blah, blah, blah. This will change your life. Once you get those highly used reports into a state where you understand how they work, it's a game changer. Finally, you can move old reports into a report folder that's not shared with other people. This acts like a recycle bin. There's actually no reason to delete reports. They don't cost you any storage, but if you want to clean up your organization a little bit, you can create a folder and just don't share it with anybody, and you can move reports into there. And if somebody 6 months from now says, hey, what happened to my report? I love that thing. You can go move it back into a public folder. Nothing has changed. A couple other tips for your journey to success. Here are some resources. Trailhead. I wish Trailhead was around for a lot longer. When I started, I had to do all this research and figure this stuff out, but now there are modules on how to build reports, and they explain to you a little bit more about how report types work, and that's great, so start there. I am an author for reportforce.blog. I try to post once a month, and that's my New Year's resolution this year, is to try to get more content up there. I have a 5-part series all about the ultimate guide to report types. Covers a lot of what I'm talking about here today and goes into even more detail. So if you want to read through that, please check that out. Brent Downey, the admin hero, did a blog post on the hidden custom report type functionality, which shows you all that cool stuff that I showed on the edit a custom report type layout screen. So check that out if you want more. And if you're more of a video person, I do have recordings of this presentation. It's on YouTube now, so I'm guessing it should be recorded there too. You can check that out. I have a quick video on cross filters. If you haven't been using cross filters, I find they solve so many problems. So definitely learn about cross filters and how you can apply them in your filtering needs. Finally, I have a quick video on how to hide report types. And if all of that's not good enough, feel free to reach out to me. My email is here, evan@pontersolutions.com. I'm a Salesforce consultant. I'd be happy to help, chat with you, help you solve a problem, and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm gonna read through the chat real quick and try to answer some of these questions. But thank you so much for being here.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you very much, Evan. You'll eventually see it, but everyone basically saying great content. Thank you, very helpful, great job. So it's yeah, definitely. Thank you. That was a great presentation, man. The first question we have from the audience was, is there a limit on the number of custom report types you can create in a Salesforce org? I did a little bit of Googling and found out that really depends on the Salesforce edition being used. And I posted the link as well in there in both the YouTube and here, just in case any of the presenters were curious and seen it. In an unlimited org, though, it is 2,000 is the limit. There was another area in there where you were essentially showing you were showing a section, and there was or you were talking about inserting a section, and Kevin asked, is there a way to insert a section without dragging it?
So when you're creating a new section in the report type layout, it adds it to the bottom by default, but you can move it around if you want to. Let me go back to it here. So every time I create a new set, so what I was doing there, my little pop-up window shows up on my other monitor. So I was just moving that window into view so you could see it. But when you create the actual section, it shows up at the bottom. You can highlight that and drag it around and reorder your sections if you want to.
Okay, awesome. Kevin in the chat, can you just reply back and let us know if that helped real quick or not? And while Kevin's going over that, he actually had another question, and it was, if you hide the report type, it doesn't affect the reports already created with that type, correct?
Correct. So all of your existing reports will still run. The thing you need to check is making sure that your report type is deployed. That is the only thing preventing a report from running, even if the report type is hidden.
Okay, so okay, awesome. Kevin, and yeah, also if you can reply on that, just make sure that that it's that way. Let's hear. And then Jessica asked, when you hide a report type from the reports tab, does that take effect for all users in your org, or just for your user that's doing that action?
That is an org-wide setting, unfortunately. So there is no way that I know of to hide a specific report type from a profile or a certain user. I will tell you that the report type is only going to show up if people have read access to the primary object. So you might be able to use that to your advantage, but when you're hiding a report type, yes, that is a global org setting at this point.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so Jessica as well in the chat, if you could please let us know if that answered your question or not. Going back over that a little bit further, so Kevin Darling said in one era, you could have the insert point in the new section and add the fields would pop into there, but now it doesn't work that way anymore. Okay, so yeah, so I guess basically what in regards to his first question you asked, that's kind of where that second window came up, and I guess it used to be a one-way previously, so, or a different way previously.
Yeah, so yeah, for that, it's just that the fields always show up in the first section, and then you do have to drag them around if you want to reorganize them.
Okay, cool. And then Jessica said that's great. She actually would want it org-wide, was just expecting to see that toggle behind wiring setup. So.
Yeah, me too. I don't know why that's on the create a new report screen, but that's where they put it.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, so thank you very much for that that awesome presentation. Also, thank you all for your great questions. And actually, Pam Martin even said, well-timed. She's working on a bunch of reports right now. So thank you for presenting that. Awesome.
Glad this was helpful.
Cool, y'all. Alrighty, so now.
Yeah. Well, actually, as far as the segue, I was going to say, the timing of it, this is what I forgot to say when introducing Evan, that this was originally meant for right around Christmas time. We're going to say, you know, Christmas is all about making a list and checking it twice to see who's been naughty or nice. So that's why we have Evan making reports to make that list, check it twice, and who's been naughty or nice. Well, that's what we have the org confessions are all about. So that's how I bring those two together. But this is also, but now here we are with January, starting off the new year. You want to make New Year's resolutions, finding out where you've had faults in the previous year, your org confessions, and making a list, making a report to track your progress to see how well you're doing. So again, you need reports. So there we go. I'm going to weave that in there with that.
That's a perfect tie-in, man. And for the rest of the community, one thing you'll notice as Jason gets more and more involved, so we are already looking at planning our February set of presentations, and you know, being that Valentine's Day is in February, you'll see a tie-in there too. Definitely creative, so I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, well, actually, so I hear Evan, I was thought of something for maybe a gift for you as a creative name, but you tied it really well, and like where you said deluxe report types. You know, I like how you package that at the end. It's like, hey, look at this. Your users will think they're getting something deluxe for free. But also, you know, you're not giving yourself enough credit because there's the Venn diagram. Why not the Evan diagram or Evan report type?
There we go.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. I'll add that to my Ponter's pointers to have an Evan diagram.
It's just one circle. Thank you. That was great. That was really masterful. Great presentation.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast to be here.
Sweet. Thanks, man. Awesome. And so it looks like there's no more questions on the YouTube side of the world. So with that, Alyssa, I'm definitely happy to introduce you as well. So if you want, please give an introduction. Let us know a little bit more about you know, where you are in the company you're working for, and kind of how this all came to be.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have to say, Evan, I think you're a great presenter. You're so clear and so easy to follow. I bet everybody agrees, because some presenters, I don't know, somehow you get lost in the way they set up their sentences and paragraphs. Anyway, I thought you were so clear, and it just made it seem really easy. And I'm just still consider myself kind of a baby admin. I'm not any good. And I thought I could do that. So thank you. And so I hope everybody could see my screen now. Hang on, let me just
so we see there we go. Yep.
Do you see that now? So I'm Alyssa Abbey, and I am VP Community for Elements.Cloud. And Elements is an ISV. We have created an app that we think will help admins and consultants to go around the implementation lifecycle better. And before you're already like, what that means is to be able to build the right things the first time that are really the things that support your users and your business. And often, and I'll say more about me. So I'm actually in California now, but I've lived all over. I'm very lucky now to live in the San Francisco Bay Area, just north. I can see Salesforce Tower from my deck. I'm very lucky. I've kind of lived in 6 countries and so many places, and I think this is home now. So I used to take the ferry into the office. I haven't done that in a long time, and eventually maybe we will do that. And we're all hopeful for that for this year. But this app is all about trying to help people not have a bunch of junk in the back of their org garages. And again, to build the right things the first time, to really support that. Because when the founders of this company, when they ran their previous company, they used to keep a data dictionary that was a spreadsheet. True story. And for the entire time they ran the company, they had the spreadsheet, and it was a pain in the butt. But it was really helpful to them, so they could be confident every time they went to make changes. And they vowed that if they ever built another company, they'd build an app that would do all the heavy lifting. So we started to build this. It's really grown and improved in the last 4 years that I've been with the company. And when we talked to people about what they need, they started to tell us their, should I say horror stories, things that maybe gone wrong in their orgs. And we just started kind of collecting them. And then we thought, oh, we have to build a website for this. And so we actually built orgconfessions.com, and people maybe find it a little bit therapeutic to go and write down things that have happened. It's a little bit like reading the Darwin Awards. You kind of can't look away from the train wreck. And we actually now have 1,150 org confessions. And we're not here to diss Salesforce. We love Salesforce. That's why we have this company. That's why we built this app, because we think it's amazing. And the most amazing thing about it is how customizable it is. Thank you very much, Evan. Absolutely, like astonishing capabilities. But the worst thing about Salesforce is that it's so customizable. And so you do it, but you don't, you don't document what you did maybe. And I know you gave a really great shout out, Evan, to just putting in description stuff, the most basic form of documentation that, please, do that. So you could go and check out Org Confessions if you want a laugh, and your New Year's resolution maybe should be to not have to go there to put one in, but to actually be running this implementation lifecycle. I've talked about running it better, and I'll be showing you what that looks like and going through that a little bit. But I want to show you your typical org confession. This happens to be the staff favorite at Elements. And you see this a lot, user to doing Trailhead in production. And on this particular occasion, the prod login gets changed to kittiesareCute.mysalesforce.com. Oh my goodness. Like, it's just really head in hand stuff. And so a lot of the confessions just make you think like this picture, right? Like, how did this ever happen? And of course, this picture is really funny, right? It's funny, but it's not funny, because Salesforce is not what it was 20 years ago. Salesforce is not a replacement for a Rolodex. It's not just a repository for all your information. It is strategically how you run your company, right? And anyway, let me give you a couple more because they are funny. Hold on. Come on, you. There we go. Wait. Oh, okay. There we go. That is the right side. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is a classic. Deleted one custom field that blew up 40 reports, 3 dashboards in 2 weeks of my life. And I guess that's the thing that people come to literally like confess. So we have 1,150 now, and we've done a root cause analysis of those. Why are things going wrong? Because Salesforce is such a great app, right? And it's so customizable. Well, this is what the root cause analysis says. That the biggest reason for issues people have in their org is a lack of the analysis phase. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, but basically it's making sure that you have the requirements and user stories correct and doing an impact analysis of the changes that are going to happen. Poor architecture is a close second, and then a lack of documentation. So you don't know what you can delete the next time you go to change something. DevOps issues. I really encourage people to have a good DevOps system. Permissions issues. That's the kiddies are cute thing. And of course, training, because if it's going to serve people, the change is going to serve your users, the users have to know how to use it. So here we go. This is the implementation lifecycle, and we could certainly debate exactly what this should look like to be best practice, but I think everybody could agree that this is essentially it. This is a great way to be making changes in your org so you don't break things, so you build the right things, so that when it deploys, things don't go wrong, and so that then you have, an operate phase where you are actually monitoring things, and then you're gathering feedback for the next time around the cycle, because that's what it is. Bottom left, analyze. You make sure you have the requirements. You validate those against process map, because requirements, I mean, what I don't know about you guys, but what tends to come through is like a bunch of random wishes and maybe actual statements of work if you're lucky, but a few gems. But how do you know if you should be building those things? How do you know that? Well, do they support the business process maps? Do you do process mapping? Maybe you don't, because there's no great way to do it and there's no great way to store it. And so anyway, I'm going to show you how our application supports that. So then you are able to analyze what would break, what would happen both in the business, in the org, and also with compliance issues when you make changes. And then, of course, that enables you to write great user stories, which you give to your admin, you give to your developers, and then you get into that build phase. So you build the things. And you guys, and I think Evan has just shown that, and you guys are good at building the things. It's so much fun, right? And
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. It's great. It's easy, whether you're coding in Apex or whether you're, clicking and just doing the things that you've showed us, Evan. Build the things, fantastic. But look at that one thing it says in the build phase, document. That is hard. People don't document because it's hard. And how are you supposed to do that? And Salesforce, bless their cotton socks, says, I've seen this actually written down in their own documentation. If you want to document, you should use a spreadsheet. And remember that story I told in the very beginning of the previous company run by our founders? They did keep a spreadsheet for their data dictionary and all the documentation. Well, that was more than 20 years ago, all right, when they started that. That was then, this is now. Now we have an app, in this case, to do the heavy lifting. We have collaborative workspaces. We have a place to build all this information all together that's all connected. It's really cool. And of course, then once you've built the things, you're delivering those, deploying those so that hopefully nothing breaks. You make the release, and then immediately you're monitoring that and making any corrections. And look in the bottom right too, in that operate phase, look at that restore. I wonder how many of you could say, we not only have a backup for our data, but if something went horribly wrong, we could actually restore the entire org, and we could do it pretty quickly. And I know that it's hard, and that if you really want a good system, it costs money. But then how much would it cost if your org totally broke and you could run your business? And then you've got the data, because you're all doing manual backups, or like 80% of you or more doing manual backups every week or 2 weeks. It's great. You got the data. Could you restore your org? Not necessarily. So I really encourage you to think about that. Okay, so let's go right back to analyze and think about, once you've gathered requirements, however you're doing that. It could work in a spreadsheet if you were doing that. I'll show you a better way in a minute, but let's say you get them, you get those requirements. So if you look at this slide, what I mentioned, like you're getting feedback from people and random wishes and things. So you're capturing those, but then look at this sort of feedback round and round, where we are validating those requirements against your processes. And I really want you to think about how you do that and whether you do that. And a lot of companies are just like, oh, that takes too long and it's so bothersome. But then how do you know you're building the right things? How do you know? And once you get those solid requirements, then you can write those great user stories for your developers, and you can see just the other purple boxes here, where it's like you've got your user stories, you can then really analyze how it would impact your org, your organization, before you go and build things. Okay, so mapping processes, and I want to show you the Elements process mapping app, because I can tell you, it doesn't look like this, not like this. This is a real picture. This was taken by our founder CEO, Ian, at an Accenture workshop with a customer about, in the 80s, in the late 80s sometime. And I'm sure someone put a lot of work into this. But even if you had this electronically and not on paper, and you looked at this, how much could you possibly absorb or remember, or how much would you go back to? Like what? And is it connected to the requirements? Is it connected to anything? No, it's not connected to your org, but it's 2020. So we have Universal Process Notation, UPN. And I know some people use Visio, or they use Glyphy, or a loose chart. So there are these things, and you could even process map in PowerPoint if you literally have not a penny. You could, but then where do you store those things so that people can see them and they would go back to them and know what was the most up-to-date version of those? We've built a process mapping tool within the overall application, where you just have one shape. So super simple. 6th grader can follow this. One shape that is an activity box, always starts with a verb. The connecting lines tell you the why or the when. So, and they're really important. You can't just have a bunch of boxes. What are the connections? So look at this top left. There's a unhappy customer. They request support. Well, if it's a sales issue, it goes this way. If it's a non-sales issue, it goes that way. So there's no decision diamonds. Just if it's yes, it goes this way. If it knows, it goes this way. And then when it's resolved, then we confirm with the customer. So that's all important. Also, see those little dark triangles in the top left of the boxes? That is where there's more detail below. That's what we call a child diagram or a lower diagram, however you want to think about it. So there's then more detail. So request support. It's a sales issue. We want to resolve the sales support request. How do we do that? Click that little triangle. It says 2 on it, and then there'll be another set of boxes. Within that set of boxes, there might be more detail, and there are attachments. So you see here, there's a little paper clip top right. So attached to that activity box, you may be able to go directly to the Salesforce page where you would put in data there. You might see a video on customer service. You might see, some Google Doc about this types of sales support issues. So you can have any number of attachments so that your users who will have access to this, it's effectively training for them. So, and I hope that makes sense as like a super whistle-stop tour of what is universal process notation, how would it work, but it's just so much simpler than that crazy thing you saw with 100 boxes. And I've seen process diagrams that have like 25 shapes. Though my brain isn't big enough for that, I can't do it. Anyway, so another few or confessions, I think, because we all need a laugh today. That is certain. Okay, this is a classic. Spent 3 hours putting a change in production after weeks of designing and testing. By the end of the day, we had to turn off the new process. The whole sales team up in arms about the process they hadn't been consulted on. This happens all the time. So maybe marketing says they need something, and so you put it in place and involves a sales team, but nobody talked to them, and no one validated these requirements or user stories against a process. And this is just a lack of analysis, that phase. This one also pretty classic. We've never defined the difference between a status or stage when tracking a sales process or engagement opportunity. I recently noticed I've allowed 51 different statuses or stages for 9 different programs that need to be tracked, all within a single pick list field. Like, what? That's insane. Most of these 51 options are duplicative and only disenfranchise users from using the system. This is being escalated to leadership for review. Well, you know what? I'll tell you for nothing that leadership does not know the answer for review. Like, what they don't know. And so the only thing that would tell you what you could and should delete is, first of all, being able to validate against a process, but also being able to see all the analysis about that field and see where the data is and where it's not, what's being used. And this is another one, lack of analysis, because you'll see, I worked a startup that had few processes. The few that they had were constantly changing. When trying to understand the processes so I could configure Salesforce appropriately, I was told my questions were perceived as me being difficult and trying to create roadblocks. So that's what you guys can be up against. And I would really encourage you as admins to be bold, have the brave conversations with people and say, this is vitally important, because if we don't know what the business processes are, we cannot build to those to support them. And then we're going to end up building 2 and 3 times, and it's going to cost way more money. So this is, it's really interesting. Creating roadblocks, no. This is actually smoothing the way if you can do some process mapping. Anyway, so let me just kind of remind you then that of what this looks like. So gathering those requirements, making sure that you're validating the requirements against the processes so you end up with the best user stories, but also being able to see, hopefully, a data dictionary and see everything in your org and see some analysis of it and see dependency trees and see all the things before you start changing things so you don't break your org. Okay. Oh yeah, I know an analogy I like to give everybody here. Doing the analyze phase is like taping all the woodwork and really making sure you've covered the floor and everything before you start painting. Because everybody wants to put the pretty color on the walls. I know I do. And that is the build part. But if you don't tape the woodwork, which you might think, oh, it's taking so long, it's such a pain in the butt, you're going to spend a lot more time fixing the mistakes you made where you got paint on the woodwork and on the floor than you would if you just did it right the first time. So think of the analyze phase as that. Okay, another confession. This is also classic. I try to put typical ones in. I joined my company 1 year after they implemented Salesforce. Before me, they had 4 different consulting teams working on different pieces without any communication. It feels like it's just made up. How can you do that? How can you think that that was a great idea? Anyway, so I'm going to actually skip right to the user stories. So I mean, a lot of you will know this, but there is a sort of a standard format for user story that if you've taken the requirements and then you validated them against the processes, this is the format that developers use. This is used in Jira, it's used elsewhere, that as a blank, I want to blank so that I can blank. And capturing those and being able to store them well and take them through a life cycle is really important. That's an important part of the implementation life cycle. The Elements application does happen to have a spreadsheet-like thing that would enable you to do this, and you could do this on a spreadsheet, this looks a lot like the requirements part of the application as well, because you can see up in the top left here, it's kind of faint, but it says requirements, stories, feedback. So requirements can be linked to stories, but you can also have them separate. They all have, you can see those columns, they have a summary, an ID, they've got a description, the roles that are affected, acceptance criteria. There's also a column that's where it is in the life cycle. On the right-hand side, you see this box that is the analysis box. So it can tell you some information about that particular highlighted, I guess, a requirement in that case. So user stories, requirements, they look pretty similar. But in this way, they can be tied together within the app. They can be tied to process maps, to particular activity boxes in a process map, or to like a single diagram within a process map. And they can be tied to items in your org. And you'll see that in a minute. Let's see. I just kind of want to go. Let's see. After this, I want to go and show you the data dictionary and how you would connect those things into your org. But this is too good. About to go live in 2 days. Client said the org is greenfield. It is not. We've just discovered the changes we were making will break the org. It's supposed to go live in 2 days. Yeah, analysis phase, people. Okay. So what am I talking about when I say you could connect things like a requirement, a user story, a step in a process map to an item in your org? Well, this is how. This is an org model. You're seeing a picture of an org model. If you connect your org to Elements, pulls all the metadata, not the data, but the metadata from your org, and then lays that out in this beautiful nested list, like an accordion style list, right? And you can see here that the top row says Salesforce production. So if you clicked on that, you could see, it would tell you like how many reports are in your org, how many objects, how many, Apex classes. And then as you drill down, you get the analysis of those finer and finer grain items. So in this case, we're at object level custom objects at a custom object called project. And then over on the right, you just see that little information icon that's circled in blue. So we're just seeing the overall information on this, but you could look at the next, the next icon down, which is all about cleanup. It would tell you a little bit about, usage. The next item down is you see the little connectors. So you could see a dependency tree and everything that it's connected to. And the next item down with the paper sheets, that's documentation. So you could attach documentation. So this not only gives you analysis of the items in your org and dependencies, it is a documentation hub. No spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are so 1980s. We do not do that anymore. We have collaborative workspaces. But anyway, here's a couple of confessions for you. Over 100 pick list values on a field. I have no idea which ones are used because we can't delete it. Classic. This is the junk in the back of the garage problem. And there are field limits, right? I don't know. I can't see everybody on the call, so I would love to make you raise your hand. How many people have come up against field limits? Well, that's because you need to get rid of some of that junk. But how do you know which junk to get rid of? If you have dependency trees, if you can see the analysis last used, whether there's data in your fields, then you can feel confident. Anyway, inherited an org where input validation for a single object was buried inside multiple Apex classes instead of using validation rules. So, like, again, that's how do you find out anything? I don't know. Here's another reminder. More confession. Another org confession. This is good. Oh, this is brilliant. You'll love it. So a customer asked me to configure their new Salesforce so it looked exactly like their 13-year-old legacy system. Puzzled, I asked. They liked their old system. They said they loathed it, as it was hard to use and did not do what they wanted. So I asked, why do you want Salesforce to be built like that? They said, it would make user adoption easier. It's like, oh, no. What? Yeah. That's crazy. You need, if you have elements and you can put documentation on things that can be attached to an item in the org like this in our org model, you can see that here. In this case, where we've drilled down to this object, a business issue, and over on the right-hand analysis box, we're on that documentation icon. And so there's a whole bunch of documentation. There are simple notes, there are videos, it's attached at the bottom. You can see which process activities this is attached to. You can add, there's a little button here, add documentation, where it says to the right of that copy node link. Whoops, keep doing this. Copy node link. That is so you would copy that node, it's saying the node link for business issue object, and then you could go to a process map and copy it to a particular process box, or you could copy it, you could connect a requirement or user story. So like everything is integrated. And because you live in Salesforce, you can see all this stuff right in setup. It's there. So you can add documentation from there, and you can see all your process maps, and it's all live. So if you do anything here, it's automatically in the Elements application. Okay, gotta make you laugh. A few more of these because they're just so good. A solo admin has developed the org for the last 8 years. They've just left, but there's no documentation on any of the changes. So now the new team of 3 people is trying to work out what was done and why. And if you want a business case for why you would need a good way to document, this is it. We've heard way worse stories. This is 3. So one person's left, they've got 3. How long do you think it will take this team to work out what was done and why? What was done, maybe not so long, but why? It's possibly impossible to work out why. But if documentation has been kept at religiously, which that's got to be your New Year's resolution, everyone. Keep that documentation. It seems like a pain in the butt. It seems like you don't have time. Everybody wants everything yesterday. I'll do it after the project. No, you won't. And if you have to change something, then change the documentation. And while you're building something, it takes 5 minutes to document it. If you wait till later, it might take you an hour to document it. And I just can't stress this enough. And you probably know that, you know this already, but I'm imploring you to get this new habit in 2021. I think this is just funny. Halfway through a bottle of wine while rebuilding a flow full of unexplained tech debt. Please use the description fields on things. This is the most basic form of documentation. We've been campaigning for a long time to make the description field mandatory, but no one will listen to us. Okay, and this one's good. I learned we had 1.5 million lines of undocumented Apex code. Yep. It's also funny. My org has 2 price books called Standard Price Book. And so if you were to use the Elements app so you could document, so you could keep the processes, so you'd have a way to connect the requirements and user stories, so that when that disorganized person comes and says, why in the world do we have this? You can look it up and say, because you put in that requirement last March. That's why we built it. So it's all connected, but it's also there as in-app user help. So any of or all of the documentation, let me start that again. Any or all of the documentation that you take the time to connect to your org model, you can use as in-app help. So this is a record page. And so this here, your user is, they're in this opportunity, and that's at the object level. There are a bunch of different help items. It's a little bit exaggerated for effect here, but you can see down the page where those little purple eyes are. We've essentially, with a Chrome extension, hijacked the Salesforce help. So instead of gray, they're purple, and you can have anything there. You can see what they are because they're all listed at the top here at the object level, and then at the field level, they're more individual. So that again, there are notes, there are links to videos, there are links to Google Docs, and there's a link to a Trailhead module, and you can also leave feedback right here. And if you do as a user, then the admin will get an email and say there's been this feedback left on the opportunity, on an opportunity object or on a record page. So there you go. That again, it's this is kind of a whistle-stop tour of what are the things that you really need to be doing so that you have the fewest unintended consequences as you make the changes that are rolling in, the requirements that roll in all the time for you. So many changes all the time, but having this discipline of some form of best practice that works for your org is just going to save you time and money in the end. So one more org confession. Classic. There you go. Just no code coverage. So all these, these things happen all the time. By the way, if you go to orgconfessions.com and you read them, they are anonymous, okay? We do not have a way to verify all of these. However, I just don't think you could make them up. and they just keep rolling in. So what are the, what are the takeaways from this? This is, there are business benefits. Of course, you want to do this stuff if you're implementing Salesforce for the first time, but this is just the way you run your business, because your businesses, to a greater or lesser extent, and increasingly to a greater extent, your businesses are being run from Salesforce. It's not a Rolodex replacement. It's not just a bunch of data. It is the way your businesses are run. And so the better you run it with the fewest rollbacks, the most effective, and the less money you'll spend just doing this. If you want to play with the process mapping part, by the way, is free. You could just go and play with that. If you want to set up an Elements account, you can play with that for free. But doing those live workshops with people where you're maybe working on requirements or process mapping or documentation, where you have the developers in the room, you have the other stakeholders, it doesn't take that long. It's very effective. And as it says here, the power is in the aggregation, not only the documentation, but the aggregation of, we have our requirements, our user stories, every single item in our org we can see all at the same time, and the documentation with that. So we can get the webinar. I've used this presentation because it's most up to date. When we did this just right around Dreamforce, this just at the end of last year. And so I know that this is being recorded today, so certainly everybody's going to get the link to the recording of this. You can contact success@elements.cloud if you want to find out any more information. And we are really happy to help you, get started and be successful. You can do a 2-week. You can do a 2-week free. Well, we call it a proof of concept now. It's basically a 2-week free trial, and have a play. And that's it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Alyssa. It's actually funny. The last comment in the YouTube was one that when I saw the confession in there, I was like, wow, yeah, no, unfortunately, I've seen that before. The fake code coverage instead of like actual assertions and stuff like that. So
Right.
It's definitely frustrating.
Right. And it can take a long time to unravel this stuff. If you come in to what most people have, which is an undocumented org, it's not because they're lazy. Admins are working their butts off. I know that. It's because there's no easy way to do it. You have to have a way that makes sense to do it, because only crazy people maintain a spreadsheet that is their data dictionary. Laudable, but crazy, just too much work.
No, it's definitely true. And I even know myself when I was, 7 years ago when I was starting out in this amazing ecosystem, I tried the Excel way of doing things. Later, when I found this whole world of Google Docs, I started just kind of making bullet points and stuff. But both of those are extremely annotated and they take time. And when you have to actually go back and try and find something, the best thing you have is Control F to actually try and find it in there. Half the time, you don't remember exactly what you labeled it.
Right. We do that with all our all the documents we make in our companies. Yeah. And so for a 60,000 item org, like, whoa, it's pretty hard. Yeah.
Curious throughout there. Loved hearing the confessions. Thank you. So.
Oh, yeah, I have another one actually. Oh, this is my personal favorite. This is a bit of fun. User cannot access an opportunity. Ask them to send the URL of the record. They printed out the opportunity, scanned it, and sent it as an email. Bless their heart. I love it. Because, I love this one so much, why it's my favorite. It's kind of like, but I'm on the older side, right? So it's kind of like my generation versus what I hope all the 20-somethings out there would do automatically. Of course, they just send the URL. But people who are maybe a little older, who aren't so technically savvy, this is the way they think to do it. And that's, we used to email each, well, first we didn't have email when I started work.
I was
There
gonna
was
say, I'm
no
surprised they didn't fax it
email.
over.
Right. Fax it. So then we, then we had spreadsheets, and it was a revelation, and we would email them around, but would say you'd have to label them on the day. So you'd have a label, you'd have a name for the spreadsheet, and then the date. So you could look to see if you had the latest ones. And sometimes if you're really sending things around, you had a date and a time that you'd have to save as, because we did not have single source of truth collaborative workspaces, and now we do. And so and they're great. And we all know. So Elements is just I think it's a terrific example of that, and a way to have everything at your fingertips, because when you have that org model, that syncs every single night with your org. So you are looking at the most up-to-date thing every single day, and you get a little column that tells you where things have been updated, or changed or deleted.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Alyssa.
Oh, you're so welcome. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if there are any other questions, but yeah, do get in touch if you want to hear anything more about it.
Definitely. Thank you very much, man. Yeah, and those are actually pretty funny. I think the first time I saw that was at the Dreamforce. Is it at the Dreamforce, or when your wonderful company actually sponsored our NorCal Dreaming event? So.
Yes. So yeah, we were at all the Dreaming event, well, virtually all, in 2019. And then it just seems so long ago now. Dreamforce 19.
It does. Yeah, I was up in that happy hour that you guys had there. So that was a good time. So at the moment there are not any other questions. So if it's okay with you, I'll kind of start sharing my screen now, and we can go into the Kahoot game. Awesome.
Yeah, let's Kahoot it.
So for those of y'all that haven't ever done Kahoots, let me go ahead and share my screen now. Let's see, screen 2. Can y'all see where it says Kahoot here?
Yes.
Outstanding. So yes, so for those of y'all that have not done Kahoots yet, and I sent this in the email that had the link to the YouTube in it, but I will go and send that and actually bring it over into the chat as of right now. So go to Kahoot, and on the bottom it says create your own Kahoot for free on Kahoot.com. So if you actually want to register and be like a free user of Kahoots, I personally would recommend it, because moving forward, this is where we're going to have all of our quizzes, and basically we'll enable all the free swag to be given out. So we actually have some awesome swag from Alyssa, from Salesforce, and also from MST. And we're essentially going to run this game, and then the highest scores will end up getting some awesome swag. So yeah, so I'll give you all a chance to go in there, and it'll only take a couple minutes, but go and actually create your Kahoot account. It is 5:22 as of right now. So say 3 minutes, we'll go and actually start the game. And let's do stop sharing real quick. Let me actually launch this version of it real quick, so I can give you the ID. So the Kahoot is loading. We're going to do classic. Yes, classic. It's loading a game pin. There we are. There's that. There we go. Pause that for now. Play that in about a minute and a half. And in the YouTube here, this is the pin for the actual Kahoot game. So once you register for Kahoots, or if you don't want to register, you can just go to that kahoot.it link and just put that 6-digit code into right there in the middle of the screen, So for instance, I guess I can go and show that real quick. Let's see here. Share screen, and we'll go to Kahoot.it. And so when you come to this screen in the game pin, you'll enter in 229169. And in about a minute, I actually have a commercial, being, it's virtual, right? It's YouTube. Normally there's commercials all the way around and all that fun stuff. I actually have a Salesforce commercial to share with everyone here that I'll play as soon as it reaches 525. And then, we'll basically go through the questions, keep a record of the highest scores. And then assuming you have one of the higher scores, go ahead and send me an email, or we'll reach out in the community and get your address and all that fun stuff so we can get that mailed out to you.
While that's loading, I have some music, video game music we can play while we wait for final minute. Oh, okay, time's up.
Thank you for that throwback to the wonderful days of Mario. All right. So is there, before I go and press, actually while I'm doing this, so we'll switch over to the commercial. And I will push play here. If there's anyone who has not signed up in the or is ready to play the Kahoot game yet, please in the chat here say I'm still working on it or something like that, and I'll give it another couple minutes. But given everyone's ready, we will start as soon as this 90-second commercial is over.
We don't hear it. Maybe
we can't hear it, Donald. I was waiting to see if it kicked in.
Maybe because if you have headphones on, it's not playing. That's why I took my headphones off. If you have headphones on, it's not playing it for the channel.
I do not.
Oh. So I mean, I've learned to lip read through 2020.
We've all learned all sorts of things in 2020.
Right. All right. Well, I haven't received anyone that says they can't hear it. So I guess we will go through and let's actually start. You can actually find this commercial on Salesforce's Salesforce platform YouTube channel, but I'll also create a link for it in the YouTube. Alrighty. So, Salesforce Admin User Group. The first question is, what is Hyperform? So I guess before we move on to the next question, being that we only got 2 answers for that one, was everyone able to access the Kahoot? I see it looks like 2 people did, but I want to make sure everyone else could as well. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any no's, so I will assume that that we can Charlie Mike and move on to the next one. Let me okay, let's see. All right, so let me back out just for a second. I do apologize. We can definitely run this again. Yeah, let me back out. I'll increase the timer and make sure that there's more time involved between the link or the sync there. But the quiz, so you're not clicking on the YouTube screen itself. You're looking at the actual the link. If you go to Kahoot.com, right? So Kahoot, or not Kahoot.com, Kahoot.it, and then enter in on that screen this pin.
Yeah, that's important. Kahoot.it, because the first time I went to Kahoot.com and that's not right. It's Kahoot.it.
So and so the ID is probably going to change when I go and change out this game. So let me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a second. We will get this working. I do apologize for this is the first time we actually done this through this one. Let's leave that. I will go through and change the questions. So instead of 30 seconds, we have 60 seconds, which should be enough. So that would give you guys at least 30 seconds on the questions. So give me one moment while I go through and click on those real quick, and then I will reload it, give you the new ID, and we will go from there. And also, thank you very much for bearing with me while I am going through and clicking these over. For what it's worth, the prizes are awesome, and the questions, at least some of them, are quite comical. So it should be fun once we get it going. And there's the last questions. Make sure they're all at 60 now. And looks like we're good. All right, so pressing done over there. It's validating. Done. And I will go ahead and share my screen once again. So we have, let's see here, play, present, share screen, classic. All right, so again, it will be Kahoot.it, and it will be this up here, 924-1540. So go through this, give you all a minute to log in there. And I will wait for the video to finish in the YouTube screen itself. Make sure everyone's in there. I know the commercial itself is about 90 seconds. And again, please keep in mind that you will be playing the game via the web version and not through YouTube itself. So the questions will be on top, and all the answers that you need to click on will be on the bottom. All right, and we are almost there. It is ended on our side. And so as soon as I see that it is done on the YouTube channel where everyone else is, we will go ahead and press start. Outstanding. We are now starting. So the question is up here at the very top, and you can select one or more of the answers below. Again, utilizing the web app itself and not YouTube. There we go. And for one more answer. And there it is. And so then it shows you the answer that was correct, and essentially what everyone voted. So 4 of them selected the second one, which is correct, but it was also a Power Rangers team back in, I believe that was the 90s. So
yeah, it's a couple of years ago. It's still going, the show.
So it was B and C.
Yeah, if you just Google Hyperforce, you're going to see that'll be like a higher up link.
Okay, outstanding. And so now we must go on to the next question. And yes, for those of you curious, that is the Salesforce tower in the picture.
Play some light video game music. Be a secondary trivia to see if you can guess that game.
And there we are. We got 9 correct answers here for Sassy. Yes, for those of y'all that did not know, Salesforce did acquire Slack. I think that was the last one of the year. Earlier in the year, though, they did also acquire Acumen Solutions and there we go. Well done, everyone. So again, we got 10 out of the 11 was correct there, and it is work.com. Although myspace.com is a fabulous answer, along with Men at Work, and I don't know if AOL is actually even still around these days. But work.com is definitely the correct answer there. So thank you all. And again, for those of y'all that are curious and want to essentially level up and get to the top of this list here, you essentially get more points the faster you answer it correctly. So if you know the answer, instead of just kind of pondering on it, if you click it right away and it is the right answer, you'll get more points than the person that clicks it after you. There we go. So what is Salesforce Anywhere? Essentially, it is the Salesforce app with chats, alerts, comments, and videos embedded. And there we go. Due to faster answers and clicking on those mouse just a little bit quicker, we have two folks that have moved from 4th and 5th all the way up to 2nd and 3rd, it looks like. Still a few more questions to go, so don't fret. There we go. So for this one, it was what can you not do in Flow Builder? And the answer for that was create email services. Oh wow, a lot of change there in the scoreboard. Brandon's on Brandon, I think as they used to say in NBA Jam, is on fire. I actually really like the music with this one, along with that. It almost has like a Fantasia type theme going on with it.
The Kahoots music?
Yeah.
I don't hear it on my side. I didn't load the game. Oh man, I'm missing out.
There we are. We got 9 answers correct.
I totally wish it was the last one though. The be a new mascot transformer. Salesforce
There we go. Oh. And Brandon's still on fire. The good news is we still have about another 10 to go. Yeah, so I think there's about a 20-second delay between our live version and the integration between what we're doing on Zoom and YouTube. Ooh, the question was a little bit more difficult, but still, it's the majority answered, or 50% of the population answered here, and that is correct. The first ever nonprofit dreaming will be January 28th through 29th of 2021.
More information posted in the chat, nonprofitdreaming.org.
There we go. Thank you for that. Ooh, and it looks like Michelle Love actually came back up. Yes, we had a split answer for that one there. Let's see what the leaderboard says.
Yes, the latest update is now the recycle bin it's an app in Salesforce. It's not in setup. It's in an app. It's like an own object.
So essentially, through the app launcher is now how they can access their recycle bin.
Right.
Okay, outstanding. I actually haven't been in an org in a while, and that's even good for me to know. So thank you.
Ooh.
Go. Not horrible.
Yeah. This is where we have instead of the Venn diagram, we have the Evan diagram. It's just one circle.
There we go. With his face right in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And the leaderboard, Carrie's come up a little bit. Good job.
Ooh, about 8.
About halfway through, we have Dan in first, Michelle in second, Carrie in third, followed by Kyle and Brandon. Like I said, don't fret though. We actually have a good number of prizes today. And as you can tell from a lot of these questions, We actually worked in collaboration with our wonderful presenters from today to come up with these.
I love the pictures, Don. This one looks like Alyssa's sister.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that. I was like, not me, maybe. Could be me.
Oh,
There you go. Everyone listen to your presentation.
Oh, it's a plus. And
It's
the
really
leaderboard.
reassuring.
There we go. So there's a little bit of a difference between first and third, but overall it's still pretty tight. And unfortunately, I actually would have selected C, being that I normally present, or at least have presented at the last 5 in a row. And with the way it was set up this year, unfortunately, there was no call for presenters. But yes, it was at dreamforce.com.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is like the Dreamforce to you I made as my virtual background.
There we go, good sir. There we go. And the answer was 3. There were 3, and generally are, Salesforce seasonal releases in any given year. Because Salesforce truly does care about you and making sure that you are successful on the Salesforce platform. Wow.
Spring, summer, and never fall.
Look at that score there. There we go.
Michelle Lava is on lava.
And I'll give you a hint. It was not me.
But you were in the commercial.
There we go. Yeah, I'd have to say my favorite one over the last 5 years was either one of the Salesforce Military, aka VetForce presentations, or the Consulting Partner Keynote in 2017. So here we are. James Corden was the actual answer. I would have actually liked to see Jay Leno, as I grew up a fan of his. But Wayne Brady could have been very interesting as well.
Wayne Brady was presenting at, there was another Dreamforce event. I forget what it was. It wasn't Dreamforce, but it was something with Salesforce.org together, Salesforce together, something. And so he was a host for that.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's where our disparate answers came from, was thinking along that event instead.
With Pitbull, who I heard was really impressive as far as actually a like really knowledgeable speaker.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow, Dan, you are on a streak with 8 correct answers in a row. Good job. For the rest of y'all, we do have 3 more questions left. This is actually something I was doing research on most recently, as we're actually opening this practice here and expanding it at MST ourselves.
CPQ almost sounds like a different name for, like, instead of sippy cup, it's like you had to hear CPQ.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Greenhaw's son pronounced it that way once or twice growing up. Wow, good job, most of y'all. Got 9 right out of that one.
Do not mess with these people's money. They.
And Brandon came back up. Second to the last question. Best of luck, everyone. All righty, there we go. So the answer is 4 as of right now.
Yeah, we definitely need to get that up there.
I agree with you, Jason.
Wow, Dan.
Dan's broken 10,000 points. Wow, man. Well, here we go. Here's what the last question of the day.
Again, another great picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised at how many good options are actually provided from Kahoot. Use Getty images, and you just kind of give them a little bit of feedback on what you're looking for. And I actually use this app for a lot of meetings with Salesforce, and basically the top 3 prizes all get you Uber Eats gift card. There we go. So we got 5 right answers on that one, and yes, it is Salesforce Community Cloud. There we go. Ooh.
Wow. The last minute bump.
Good
Wow.
job. Good job on coming out at the end.
Lava. Wow,
That was some good
tight.
competition.
I'm going to go ahead now and take a quick screenshot of that. Although it didn't count the last 2. Yes, so what I would recommend is if you're in the top 5, please reach out to me via email. I will actually provide that here. And yes, so if you're in the top 5 between Alyssa, myself, and Jason on behalf of Salesforce, and our other sponsors, MST Solutions, we will actually be sending out the 5 of y'all various prizes. So congratulations for winning. Thank you all for staying with us, especially as those technical difficulties came about. And we look forward to seeing you again in February, right, Jason? So the next one we're looking at?
Yes. Yeah, February. Yeah, exactly. We're going to work out, secure the date, but February, we'll keep everyone posted in the chatter.
Okay, outstanding. Well, thank you all. If you have any questions at all,
Thanks,
please
you guys.
shoot them out. Otherwise, Alyssa, thank you very much for your time today.
Sure. It was really great to hang out with everybody today. Have
Now,
a good
Alyssa,
evening.
Alyssa, I have one last confession for you. Your presentation was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really, really sweet. That's really sweet. It's good material. You just gotta read it back.
And if you want to keep listening to Alyssa, she's actually the host of the Elements.Cloud podcast, which I listen to. It's great for managing your org. Great guests, great hosts.
Had some good guests, and I have some good ones coming up too.
Ooh.
So just Elements.Cloud /podcast. It's really easy to find. Thank you for that shout out. That's really sweet.
Yeah, I even actually learned something myself, so thank you.
There you go. That's saying something.
That's really good. I've been working my way up the Salesforce fame ladder all last year, and I got a couple, even very famous people coming up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so check it out. Thanks for that.
Well, thank you all. I don't see anything else on the YouTube. Everyone's basically saying thank you and absolutely stellar presentations. So
great. Had a good time. I'll see you again sometime.
Yes, ma'am. You indeed will.
Okay. Take care, you guys.
All right, thank you all.
Cheers.
Bye.